Hey people, today I'm going to walk you through a desert landscape. I got this tutorial from Spoon Graphics. Just going to basically be following the tutorial step by step, but there are a few things that I want to explain a little bit more in depth. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new document. A lot of the techniques in this particular tutorial can be used with a lot of different things if you wanted to make a landscape of any kind. I'm going to change my unit of measurement here to pixels, and I'm going to change the artboard size to 1000 by 1500 pixels. So it's going to be a long, kind of tall artboard. And I'm also going to change the color to RGB. So just keep in mind that RGB is more of a screen color. And if you're going to be printing something, it's important to design that in CMYK. I'm just following along with the tutorial right now. So those are the settings that Spoon Graphics chose to use. All right, I'm going to hit create. And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to kind of create a rectangle to fill in the color for the whole background. And that's going to be a gradient. So we're going to just choose the rectangle tool. I could choose to just click one time and just put in here 1000 by 1500 because that's the size that I made my document. It's going to create a rectangle exactly the same size. And then what I can use is the align tool. I can go over here to where the align panel is. If your screen doesn't look like mine, you can always go to window and then you can go down to where it says align and find that panel. I'm going to just click on this fly down menu to get more options, and where it says align to, I'm going to click artboard. And that way when I click on this center both vertically and horizontally, it'll allow me to align that rectangle that I just made exactly to my artboard. Okay, so I'm going to also remove the stroke. So I'm going to just go up here to my control bar. Again, if this is something that you don't see, you can go to window and go down to where it says control, and I'll give you all these added settings depending on what you have selected. So I just made this rectangle have no stroke. And then I'm also going to go to add a linear gradient. So if I go to the gradient panel, I can select linear. Right now it's going from left to right. I want to change that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to where it says 0 and I'm going to change it to 90 degrees. Now, there's specific colors that are used in this particular tutorial. You can kind of use those same ones, or you can use ones that you prefer. It's up to you. I'm going to just follow along with the tutorial exactly. So I'm going to just go to, I'm used to going to, I'll go to RGB. When you go to RGB, you're going to see this hashtag. And the colors that I'm going to use are going to be, for the first one, is going to be FDB 983. You should be able to see that down at my screen. And I'm just going to hit return. And then I'm going to add another slider, which just means that I'm going to go under here and you're going to see a little plus sign next to the mouse. That means that I can add another gradient stop, which is going to give me another one of these. And I just double click on it and I'm going to put that next color in, which is going to be FF6655. And I'm going to hit return on my keyboard. And then I'm going to add the next color. There's 4 colors here. Double click, go down to my hex colors, 7B0F3B. Okay, and then the last one, this is got to change this to RGB2, and then I'm going to go down to that hex code again, and it's 310045. Okay, so now I've got this nice gradient from this dark purple to this orangey, like light orange. I can adjust these sliders so that I can move the color up a little bit if I wanted to, so that I can actually see that. I'm actually going to be creating mountains on here. All right, so I can also adjust these sliders up here to kind of adjust the space in between. I think I just added this one. I'm going to take it out. All right, so now I don't want to do anything else with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock it. There's multiple ways to do that, but for right now, I'm just going to show you go to Object, Lock, and Selection. And that will just keep this in place. It will allow me to not move it around accidentally or adjust it by accident. But I can always unlock it and get to it again. So now we're going to be using the pen tool. This tool is like really nice because it's super precise, and that's going to allow us to draw those mountains. So basically what I'm going to do, if you're not sure how to use the pen tool, it's a good idea to kind of learn using how to use the pen tool because it's super powerful. So I'm just going to basically create this kind of like mountainscape, and then I'm going to close my shape. So in Illustrator there's two types of paths. There are closed paths and there are open paths, and I want this to be a closed path because I want to be able to fill it with a gradient as well, and I want that gradient to go all the way to the bottom. So again, I'm following this tutorial, and it's gonna ask me to basically create the same gradient that I did, but using different colors. So this time it's only kind of like two colors. So I'm gonna go to my gradient panel here. I'm gonna just click on these and drag them, which removes them from my gradient. I'm gonna double click here. Whoops, I added one by accident. I'm gonna double click on that last one. And I'm going to add the hex code E05F4D. Whoopsie. And hit return. And then I'm going to go up to this other one and I'm going to add the color BC0E40. All right. And so I've got this, this gradient here, and this one is like a lot more subtle, so I'm going to kind of just move this a little bit closer to the top so that I can see it. Okay, so once that's done, I'm going to kind of repeat that same process. Yeah, so I'm gonna move this even more. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna draw another mountainscape here. Ooh, I don't want it to be too much like the last one. And again, I'm making sure that that shape is a closed shape. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit darker with this gradient so that, you know, as it comes forward, basically the idea is that the sun is going to be in the sky and it's kind of still shining on those highest kind of peaks of mountains, and then it's going to kind of get lower. So this color is going to be, oops, D9263D. And the darker color is going to be 7D053D. And again, you don't have to choose these colors. You can go ahead and just mess around with the slider. If you just double click this, I can make it darker, I can make it lighter. I don't have to use the exact colors unless you want to. All right, so again, we're repeating this over again. And I'm going to just move these up a little bit. so that I can make sure I am getting exactly what I want. Okay. For this one, I'm going to change these colors again. I'm going to say it's going to be AD 0536. And for this one, it's going to be 5F001E. And then I'm going to do one more whoops, I kind of wanted to make that curved, but I'll go back and fix it later. So basically I kind of missed a curve here. I'm actually just going to take my curvature tool, double click there. I actually really like the way that looks, so I'm going to leave that, make sure that that particular piece is selected, put in new colors here. So I'm going to go with 5F001E, which is the color that we used in the last one for the darker shade. And then we're going to go to 430018 here. Okay. And then finally, we're going to do kind of like the last, which is going to be a little bit more like subtle curves, because it's kind of going to represent the ground. And you can see that I'm going outside of my artboard here, and that's just going to be a solid fill. So we no longer want the gradient, so I'm just going to double click here, and in this hex code I'm going to put 320115, and that's just going to give me, whoopsie, what happened there? That's going to be, I do not want it to be a gradient, so let's try that again. 320115. Oh. All right, there we go. All right, so okay, so the other thing that can be done is if we don't want this harsh of a transition, in the tutorial it says to adjust the transparency. So we can just kind of select all of these. So I'm going to select this bottom one and these two, and I'm going to go to the transparency panel, which is here or under window and transparency, and I'm going to adjust the opacity to 70%. And I'm gonna hit cancel there. Okay, so that's at 70% now, which makes it a little bit more subtle. All right, so the next thing we're doing is we are creating our sun. So I'm going to go to the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold shift to make sure that it's a perfect circle, and I can basically make my sun as large as I want. So I'm going to make it pretty big here, maybe not that big. And let's see, we're going to give it a gradient again. So this time we're going to go back to the gradient panel, but instead of doing a linear gradient, we're actually going to do a radial gradient. And we're going to do two different colors here. One of them is going to be FF814D. And the outside ring is going to be D92940. All All right, and that gives us kind of that glowing sun shape, and we can actually move this down a little bit if we want to. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to send this behind all of these pieces. So we can go to Object, Arrange, Send Backwards. We don't want to send it all the way to the back because it'll send it behind our background. So I did send it all the way to the back, and then I brought it forward one so that I could that's one way you can do it. The other way is that you can just keep sending it backward. All right, so I'm going to position mine over here. You can either try positioning it in the, you know, if you position it off to the side a little bit, it gives it like a little bit more interest instead of positioning it in the center. I like how it kind of like is in the middle of this dip here. I might bring it up a little bit. All right, so the next thing is we're going to put a couple of effects on the sun so that we can make it look more like a sun. So in order to do that, we're going to go to where it says Effect and Stylize. Now, two things that I want to mention here is that you'll notice that there is an option for Illustrator effects and there's an option for Photoshop effects. And under both of them is Stylize. So specifically, we're going to the Illustrator effects and going to Stylize, and we're going to be choosing this outer glow, okay? This is going to give us some options here. You're going to see this little square. We're going to double click on that. We're going to choose our color. So the color that we're going to choose is FF9100. We're also going to change the mode right here. The mode is kind of what our blending mode. It's how the outer glow is going to blend with the background. So for this one, we actually want to put color dodge. We can click on this preview to kind of see what we're doing here and what it's going to look like. Clicked it too many times. All right, so you can see that glow starting to show up. We're also going to have it at 100% opacity, and we're also going to have it at 100 pixel blur. So we can kind of just click this again to see what that's going to look like. It's going to give us a quick update. And so it's going to make it kind of look like it's glowing a little bit, all right? But it's subtle. And so I'm going to hit OK. That looks great. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're also going to create a moon. So in this tutorial, he actually puts the moon at the top left. I'm going to put the moon at the right because it looks better with this composition. So what I'm doing is I'm creating 2 circles. Again, in order to get those circles, I need to hold down the shift key. I'm going to have them overlapping to kind of create that moon shape. Now, I'm going to select both of these. There's a couple ways that we can do this. I'm using that top circle to cut the other circle into that moon shape. In the tutorial, it says to use the Pathfinder panel, which is right here, and you can do minus front. That's one way you can do it. I'm going to show you another way, and you can use the shape builder tool, which I also refer to as a dead snowman because that's kind of what it looks like. And you can actually hold down the Option or the Alt key, and you can subtract those pieces from this, and you're going to get that same effect. Now I'm going to rotate this a little bit. I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And I'm also going to make the color white. So I'm going to change the fill to a white color. And then I'm also going to put a glow on this because you would have that in real life. And so I'm going to kind of put the same glow that I had on the sun. I'm going to go to Effects and Stylize and Outer Glow. And then this time, instead of the blur being at 100, I'm going to make it 20. And I'm just going to hit preview to make sure that that's what way that I want it to look, which it is. So I'm going to hit OK. All right, so now we've got our moon and our sun. And so we're going to create a couple of stars. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to actually take a circle and we're going to distort it. So I'm just going to use the outside of the artboard here. I'm just going to create a small circle, and we're going to use a distort and transform effect. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to effect here. I'm going to go to distort and transform and choose the pucker and bloat. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a negative 60% in there. And again, I want to hit the preview to make sure I'm getting exactly what I want it to look like. And yeah, so now this looks like a star. I'm going to hit OK. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make this a symbol. And what a symbol does is it allows us to kind of take a shape or something that we've created and kind of paint with it or use it multiple times. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to open up this symbols panel. Again, if you can't find the panel, you're going to go to window and then go down to where it says symbols, and you should be able to find it. And the easiest way to make a symbol is make sure that your shape is selected and nothing else is. And the easiest way to do it is actually to just drag it in there. So let me try that again. So I can just drag my shape in there. Not working, obviously. I'm going to edit that. So the easiest way to make a symbol is to have it selected, and you're going to click that new symbol. And you're going to get a dialog box with this. And so we're just going to name this symbol star. We're going to choose movie clip is fine for this. And so we're going to hit OK. All right, so you won't be able to see that, and we can actually take our original and just delete it. So now you're going to go to your symbol sprayer tool, which looks like a spray can, and you're going to select that. And if you have that star selected in your symbols panel, you should be able to kind of just click and drag, and you'll be able to kind of spray these stars everywhere. Now, my star is really large, and so what I can do is I'm going to just double click, and it's hard because I can't necessarily see it, but I'm going to make this a lot smaller. And then I'm going to go back to here by just clicking this arrow, and you'll notice that it applied those changes to my symbol. So that's one thing that's like really nice about the symbol options, is because I can adjust the symbols however I want by just going and double clicking. So I might even make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to kind of zoom in on it so that I can see it. I'm going to just hold the shift so that I'm maintaining my proportions. Then I'm going to go back, and what I should see is those stars are a lot smaller. So I'm going to add a few more. I'm just going to click on here and add some more stars. Okay, so now I've got all these stars in the sky. Now I want to do some editing. Okay, so the cool thing about the symbols is also that you have all these other options. If you click and hold down on the symbol sprayer tool, you'll see that there's a symbol shifter, a scruncher, a sizer, a spinner, a stainer, a screener, and a styler. The ones that we're going to be using here are the screener and also the sizer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that sizer tool, and I'm going to just kind of paint over this. And what that's going to do is it's going to kind of like change the size for some of those stars. If I just kind of paint, it will just add, like, make them bigger automatically. If I wanted to make some of my stars smaller, I would hold down the option key, and that's going to make them smaller. Okay, so I want to have a variation of sizes. The other one that I want to use is the screener tool, which basically allows me to kind of like randomly have like some stars that are not as bright as others, which is fairly realistic. And so the more I click on it, the more they start to lose their opacity, and they would fade back a little bit, which means that I won't have too many stars that are extra bright. Okay. And so I'm just clicking all over the screen, and that's going to give me that screener option. All right, so then once our stars look good, I'm actually going to take down the opacity even more. So I'm going to make it more subtle. So I just have to click on like any of these and it's going to create a bounding box that goes around all the stars that we created. And so I'm going to go to the transparency panel and I'm just going to drop that transparency down to about 40. And again, you can kind of see maybe there's some other stars here that I didn't get because I went back and created more stars after I made them smaller. So now my stars in my sky are really subtle, because if we still had the sun up, it would, you wouldn't be able to see your stars all that well. All right, so now that we've got most of the landscape kind of sorted out, we're going to create some silhouettes of cactuses in the front, just to kind of pull everything together and give us like something to focus on, because right now, while the landscape is nice, it feels like we're missing a little something. I'm actually going to move some of these down to give us like a little bit more space in our sky. All right, so where I want to go with this. So I'm going to basically use the same color that I'm using here. And what I want to do is I want to choose the blob brush. The blob brush is basically like a brush that instead of painting a stroke, so know that in Illustrator there are both paths and fill. I talked about before how there's open paths and closed paths, and we're working with a closed path, which means that we're working with a shape. And so the blob tool actually paints shapes instead. So off to the side here, I'm just gonna paint, actually I want to make my brush a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna use the bracket tool to make it a little bit larger, and I'm just gonna paint a line. Okay, I think I might want that even bigger, so I'm gonna just make my brush even bigger. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so that I can kind of focus on this, and I'm doing one, and then I'm gonna just kind of like create this cactus shape. And I can kind of like make the edges like a little bit bigger. I can make it go from like a little bit wider at the bottom. Oops. And if I want to edit this, like I can go in here and I can get rid of these points to kind of like make it a little bit more. Whoops. Just gonna move that. Make it look a little bit more realistic. I can adjust it however I want to. I'm gonna just go back in with the blob brush, make it a little bit smaller. All right. I'm also gonna do another one. Maybe this one's like a little bit smaller. And another one. Okay, so I've got these cacti. I also want to kind of do a little bit of grass, but first I'm going to put these cactuses in place. So I'm going to kind of bring this one in. You know, the larger it is, the closer it is in the foreground. And when it's smaller, it's meant to look like it's further away. So I can kind of put that a little bit further in the back. And then this one I'm going to put a little bit just medium. And I actually don't like the way I did this little extra armature thing, so I'm going to just select that with the pen, the white arrow, which is your direct selection tool, and I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of those points so that it goes kind of straight. All right, so the other thing that we're going to add here is just like a little bit of grasses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my brush a lot smaller and too big still. I'm gonna see also if I can just kind of change up the brush a little bit. Yeah. So you can go to your brushes panel and kind of choose another brush for that blob tool. And I can kind of wish that I had my tablet set up right now. I wonder if there's a grass brush. We could say, maybe not. Nope. Okay. I'm gonna stick with what I got here. And add that little grass. You guys can take your time, add anything that you want. I've had, you know, some people add like a horse and cowboy. You could add dust balls, you know, whatever it is that you feel like you would see in that desert landscape. And take as much time as you want. But I am going to kind of end my grass there. I'm feeling a little bit like there needs to be a little bit more transparency here. So I'm just going to drop these down like a little bit more to kind of get them to be a little bit more subtle. All right, so the last thing, last step when you're kind of doing something like this is you have a lot of stuff outside of that artboard, and you might feel the need to kind of get rid of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a clipping mask. So the way that we do that is just like we started when we kind of, when we made that rectangle for our original gradient, you're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to click one time. It's going to give me that dialog box. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to center it both ways. Then I'm going to hit Command A. This selects everything on my artboard. Now remember that background image is still locked, but we don't need to really worry about that. So then we're going to go down to where it says Object, and then Clipping Mask, and then Make. And what that's going to do is it's just going to chop off all that extra that you had. Now this isn't really a big deal because when you save it as a PDF, all that's going to go away, but you're going to save this as an Illustrator file. So you're just going to hit Save As, save it as Desert Landscape, but you can also save it as a PDF to make it easy to kind of share and upload. And that's pretty much it. So hope that you have fun with this tutorial, and I'll see you next time.